أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد اللهم صل وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال الملك ائتوني به فلما جاءه الرسول قال ارجع إلى ربك فاسأله ما بال النسوة التي قطعن أيديهن. And the king said, bring him to me. But when the messenger came to him, Yusuf said, return to your master and ask him why or what is the case of the woman who cut their hands. Inshallah, utilizing this particular verse, we want to delve into understanding the position of Fatima Zahra tonight in an ending note, and finding how we can relate the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the personality through the life of Fatima Zahra. When we become in an instance where we want to learn about a personality, people come forward and say that there's 3 different levels that someone can understand the personality. The first being a very basic general level. And that's when you come forward and you try to understand a personality by reading about them, learning about their lives. For example, if I want to learn about Rasulullah's life, I pick up, let's say, 10 books and I understand them from book cover to book cover. As in, anyone will ask me any question about Rasulullah, because I've memorized these 10 books, I will have all the answers within my knowledge. However, that is my only access to that. As in, I know it, I don't have any application whatsoever. You can be an encyclopedia when it comes to jurisprudence, spirituality. You can be a reference point when anyone wants to come forward to you, like, is this halal, is this haram? Is this, for example, justifiable? Where is it from the Holy Quran? You'll have all the information somewhere within your mind and in your knowledge and in your memory. However, you don't go to the next level by applying that particular piece of knowledge. So when we understand Fatima Zahra, we have to look in ourselves. Where do we sit in these particular scales? The first level, I may know a story about Fatima Zahra. I may know when she was born, when she died, how many children she had, how she lived, how she died, why she died. But I don't apply any of that within my own life, in any application whatsoever. The second is, hold on, now I've understood, for example, Rasulullah, that I understand Rasulullah's life through the books. But then I've also understood that following him will lead me towards salvation. Going against what he's taught us will obviously take me away from salvation and towards the other path, which is hellfire. So all of a sudden now, understanding the next level, I need to start applying that which I learned from Rasulullah. And you'll find many of us will take, as Muslims, the teachings of Rasulullah and apply it within our lives. The teachings of Ahlul Bayt, apply it to our lives. But then there's a scale. How much are we applying? When we have that particular balance, how much do we apply within our lives? Dictates how, let's say, in one way you can say how religious we are. In the sense that if I know that Rasulullah gives me 100 steps to follow, and I follow, for example, 98 of them, 2 of those steps that I don't follow Rasulullah, I'm following someone else, aren't I? And that person could be the shaitan that I'm following. Someone may look in their own life and then think to themselves, oh, hold on, I don't even follow 50 of these particular steps. So there's a particular balance we need to see within our lives. How much do we actually apply? When it comes to Fatima Zahra, many of us will think to ourselves, well, how many of her companions do we know of? How many ladies did she speak to? How many traditions from Fatima Zahra do I even know on the first level of understanding, to even go towards the second level of applying that which we've learned from her traditions within our life? Which brings us all of a sudden, well, hold on, if that's only the second level, what's the third level? And the third level, when we look into detail, it's saying that you love a personality and understood a personality to such a state that you dissolve in their love. How? Where do we see this within history? That a personality follows in the footsteps of that person that he loves, that he dissolves in their love. We go towards the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Mubahala. Rasulullah says, Amir al-Mu'mineen dissolved in my love to such a level that the Quran itself, when it comes to Surah Al-Mubahala, in Ayat Al-Mubahala, when Rasulullah says to the Christians of Najran, bring forward your woman, we'll bring forward our woman, bring forward your children, we'll bring forward our children, bring forward yourselves, and we'll bring forth ourselves. Whereas Rasulullah doesn't bring forward himself, he brings Ali ibn Abi Talib. That example is given, that Amir al-Mu'mineen followed in the footsteps of Rasulullah in such a manner that it is perfectly intertwined with the personality of Rasulullah, that the Quran testifies, saying you have dissolved in the love of Rasulullah to such a level that the Quran testifies, saying you are the soul of Rasulullah. Anfusana wa anfusakum, he brings forward Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, okay, well that's Amir al-Mu'mineen, no one can attain that particular level. I'll give you another example. Abu Fadl Abbas, on the 7th and on the 10th of Muharram, when he comes towards Imam al-Hussein, he says a particular statement. And this is a ma'soom. Imam al-Hussein, when Abu Fadl Abbas comes towards him, and Imam al-Hussein asks something from him. Before he begins his question, you know what he says? He says, بِنَفْسِيَ أَنْتِ. Whoever knows Arabic, this particular line, you know, when we translate it, بِنَفْسِيَ أَنْتِ. Imam al-Hussein is saying it to who? Abu Fadl al-Abbas. On the 7th and on the 10th. So twice, he said, بِنَفْسِيَ أَنْتِ. You know, in Arabic, the best thing we can understand is when someone comes and says, you know, فِدْوَ أَرُوحْ لَكَ. May I be sacrificed for you. That you are such a level that a ma'soom, he doesn't speak on his own accord. He says, may I be sacrificed for you. Now, some people may think to themselves, well, hold on, how can someone say such a thing? But look at the opposite agenda, look at the status and the heights that Abu Fadl al-Abbas has reached in how much he dissolved in the love of Imam al-Hussein. Sayyidah Zainab likewise, that Fatima Zahra, when she takes her aside, as Brother Muhammad said yesterday, as he's reciting the Musibah, he said that Fatima Zahra said to Zainab, I can't be in Karbala, but I want you to be my representative. And that's why when you find Sayyidah Zainab in Karbala, when the companions come, when she asks Imam al-Hussein, oh Hussein, you know, have you tested them? When the companions come standing at the tents, led by Habib ibn Mudahir, Sayyidah Zainab, when she comes out, you know what the first tradition says? She wore the cloak or the abat of her mother, Fatima. And Fatima wasn't there, but she said, you are my representative. Make sure you take this wasiyah, kiss the chest, smell the neck, to the end of the tradition. So now we've understood there's 3 different levels. Where are we at? Pick any imam. Pick Fatima Zahra, pick Zainab. How much have we applied from their lives within our lives? Which brings us to the discussion tonight. Fatima Zahra died at an age of 18. 18. That is younger than all of us here, or most of us here. But look how much she's achieved within her life. Tonight we want to look at Fatima as the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is that the case? The first question we're going to ask ourselves, what is the importance and the significance of Fatima Zahra? We just want to highlight a few traditions that we have just to showcase Fatima Zahra very briefly. Secondly, we want to analyze the Quran in 2 different levels. We want to take particular verses from the Holy Quran and showcase that the Quran is not just a literal book, but there are different depths within it. I will have a few examples. Thirdly, we want to look at a particular aspect whereby we want to look at what is the purpose of light and how is Fatima a light for us and indeed the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to end by looking at the 4 greatest women of the world. And we want to look at one particular angle, because there's many we can look at. But we want to look at one angle of why these 4 women were chosen above all else, and why is Fatima at a higher level or a greater level than all of the remaining 3. So inshallah we can bless the Majlis tonight and start the lecture understanding how Fatima is the light of Allah with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In a tradition signifying the role and the rank of Fatima Zahra, Rasulullah would say, the first person that will enter paradise is my daughter Fatima Zahra. I want you to think of this particular tradition. The first that will enter paradise is my daughter Fatima Zahra. We're not even going to go into the discussion of Mi'raj and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the fruit to Rasulullah in which became Fatima to the end of it. That's a different discussion. But the first that will enter paradise is my daughter Fatima, whereby she enters the mahshar and everyone is told to lower their gaze before she enters. And when she looks back to the end of the tradition where it says, oh Fatima, why do you not enter? She says, I want to take with me, I want to show people my status and my rank. And Allah says, go and pick whomever you wish and take them with you to Jannah. Understanding shafa'ah on a different level. But the tradition says that will enter paradise is my daughter Fatima. Number 1. Number 2, this is tradition. You know, there's some things that we look at the Senate, for example. We'll have a tradition and we look at the particular chain of narrations. And we say, the chain of narration is perfect. The political climate when this was given, perfect, Everything surrounding it is perfect. But when you read a particular statement, it doesn't make any sense. As in, how can I even think about it? One of them is this. When there's a hadith that says, Ya Muhammad, lawlak lama khalaqtul aflak. Oh Rasulullah, oh Muhammad, if it wasn't for you, I would not have created aflak. You can have different explanations. Let's say the galaxies or the universe. If you want to put it in plural, if you don't. The universe. لولاك لما خلقت الأفلاك ولولا علي لما خلقتك. If it wasn't for Ali, I would not have created you. ولولا فاطمة لما خلقتكما. What does he say? Wasn't for Rasulullah, wouldn't create the universe. Wasn't for Ali, wouldn't create Rasulullah. Wasn't for Fatima, would have not created either one of you. Now come and explain that to me. Status. Fatima is looked at to be the connection between prophethood and imamate. Look at the great rank. Whenever we have a dua, what do we say? Oh Allah, I ask you by Fatima and her father, by Fatima and her husband, by Fatima and her sons, by Fatima and the secret that's entrusted within her. Oh Allah, بحق فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. Also different discussion, this aspect of the secret that's entrusted within her. She is that center point between prophethood and imamate. She is the center point of mubahala, as in, you brought forth your sons, their sons, ourselves, their selves, and from all the women, Rasulullah brings one person, Fatima Zahra, instilling to us that the person that is at the forefront and the perfection of what a Muslim woman should aim to be like and have them as a role model is Fatima Zahra. Ayat al-Tathir, for example, chapter 33 of the Holy Quran, verse 33. And it's an interesting one in the climate that we're in. Because when Allah says, oh Allah, Ya Rasulullah, I want to remove all impurities and purify you, a thorough purification. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when the aspect of Fadak was going on, he comes to the Khalifa of the time. In the tradition, he comes towards Abu Bakr or Ibn Abi Quhafa, and he asks him, Ibn Abi Quhafa, you find that Fatima Zahra has come saying that this land belongs to her. Leave everything aside. Why do you not believe her? Because I have to judge based on the knowledge that we have. Because, okay, taking that perspective, if someone was to come and say to you that Fatima has committed a particular act of indecency, what say you? He says, well, it depends. Are people going to justify or no? As in, are they going to have people that testify against her? He says, say that there's 4 people to testify that she's committed a particular act of indecency. What would you do? So Ibn Abi Quhafa or Abu Bakr, what does he say? He says, then I have left with no choice except to instill the punishment or prosecute. Amir, when he looks at Abu Bakr, and he would say, then you haven't understood Islam. He says, why? He says, how can you believe humans saying that Fatima is indecent when Allah bear witnesses to her tahara in the Holy Quran? As in, if Allah says one thing and a human says another, who do you take? As a Muslim. Such were the people that attacked Fatima Zahra. Why? Because they didn't understand the position of Fatima. They didn't understand who Fatima was. Many times, if we want to showcase, in Islam, there is 2 different ideas that we have forward. Now, think about this. There is a particular group of people that look at Islam and say, we have personalities. Imagine different buildings, You look at Islam and there's one particular building that's above all else, and that's Rasulullah. There are others that are close towards the height of Rasulullah. And there's all these other buildings, that not necessarily even looked at. You have 2 options. If you want to be great, you can either build your building, you want to build your own personality to reach that particular level. But they say, we can't elevate these people more than, they have. How many hadith can we fabricate to elevate these people? So the other instance is what? We can't elevate them, let's bring those ones down. So they're on the same planes. What does he say? أنزلني الدهر ثم أنزلني ثم أنزلني حتى قالوا علي ومعاوية. He says that, destiny, or how you want to translate الدهر, has lowered me and lowered me and lowered me, or my memory, in such a state that they begin to say Ali and Muawiyah in the same sentence. And that's why we have tradition. When you go some tafasir, when you go to Abasa wa Tawalla, you say, for example, it was the third that's, frowned and looked away from the blind man. They say, how dare you? And we say, who was it? And they say, it was Rasulullah. And you're like, how dare you, Baba? As in, which one's greater to be angered with? That a mortal said it or an infallible? Such is the scales of balance that we have, unfortunately. Leading us to the next example. Now, understanding this, there's a group of people that take the Quran very literal. When we look at particular verses of the Holy Quran saying, Yad Allah fawqa aydihim, that the hand of Allah is above your hand. They say that, see, Allah has a physical hand. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. Everything will perish except the face of Allah. They say, even the body of Allah will perish except His face. Why? Because they've only looked at the literal meaning. They haven't looked at the depths. In the Imams, they say that, besides the literal meaning that we have from the Holy Quran, there's as much as, they say, 7 depths, one deeper than the other in its understanding. Let's give some examples, but they say there's always a bridge to reconcile between the 2. Some examples. In Surah Abasa, there's a particular verse, which is verse 24, that says the following. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, فَلْيَنْظُرُ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. That let a person look towards his sustenance or his food. Someone comes and says, oh Imam, it was Imam al-Baqir, he says, oh Imam, please explain this in further. is it just the fact that, we should look at the food that we eat? Is it halal? Is it haram? Is it from good source, bad source? Is it going to make me sick, poisonous, etc.? It says, no. It says that's the surface level understanding. The depth is the fact that you should see the knowledge that you attain from where you have received that particular knowledge. So the literal meaning or the surface level meaning is the physical body. The deeper meaning is what? The spiritual body. Just like there are foods that may poison your physical body, attaining knowledge or learning things from a bad source, or people that are misguided may poison your soul and your thoughts and your outlook on life and religion. That's one example. Let's take another example. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With the lack of time, I want to skip 2 or 3. I want to mention one that is beautiful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In Surah Al-Mulk, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ أَصْبَحَ مَاءُكُمْ غَوْرًا فَمَنْ يَأْتِكُمْ بِمَاءٍ مَعِينٍ. Literal translation. Say, have you considered if your water has become sunken into the earth, then who will bring forward flowing water? Surface level, the understanding is, and look at this beauty of this tradition. The surface level is, in an evident aspect, if the water table goes down, who will bring forward that water to come again so you may access the water? Go towards the traditions. You know what it says? When the water is sunk, it says, if your imam leaves you, then who will bring forward that imam? What's the link there? The one before it, the link was what? Sustenance. The link here, what is it? Life. Why? Concentrate with me in this one. Beautiful. It says, who will bring forward flowing water? And the deeper meaning is what? Who will bring forward the imam? And the connection or the bridge is life. Why? Because within the Quran, Allah specifies about water. What does He say? وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Everything from water, we created life. Or every life has been created from water. And the imam, what's the connection of life? وَلَوْلَا الْحُجَّ لَسَاخَتِ الْأَرْضِ. You see the connection? The life, in one aspect, surface level water. Deeper meaning, it's the connection of the imam. Surah An-Nur, Ayat An-Nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, surface level. Allahu nuru samawat wal-ard mathalu nurihi kamishkatun fiha misbah al-misbahu fi zujaja al-zujaja ka'annaha kawkabun durri. Surface level, we understand the metaphor that Allah gives. The deeper meaning, when you go to the traditions, when you say mathalu nurihi kamishkatun fiha misbah, the mishkat in the traditions, what does it say? That mishkat, which is the example of the light of Allah, is Fatima Zahra. That's the deeper meaning. Goes on, al-kawkab al-durri also in the traditions is also Fatima Zahra, so she's mentioned twice in the same ayah of Nur. Why? What's the meaning? When someone comes and asks you, well, if someone brings forward a light, we say, Imam al-Hussein, Misbah Hudan, wa Safinatu Najat. Misbah of Huda is the light of guidance or the beacon, of guidance. When we have that light, imagine a place that's dark. When we have light, the Imam al-Hussein in this tradition guides us to where we should walk, where we should refrain from, not step into, lest we fall. Guides us. The understanding of light can be you're in darkness and it reveals something. It unveils something. That it, for example, clarifies something for you. Many examples that is given when you shine light somewhere. When we look at Islam, you ask Muslims in the majority, how was the aspect of Islam? And they try to paint a picture. You bring forward anyone. Let's say You bring forward Amir al-Mu'mineen. You say that, his khilafah was taken. And they'll come and argue, well, hold on, how can you prove it? We bring Khadir home, we bring that hadith. They say, we'll play around with the words. We said Mawla can be friends, A, B, C. Never ending. Bring Imam al-Hassan, he was the Imam, hold on, political climate aspects. Imam al-Hussein, martyrdom, they say no, he came and he went against the Imam of his time, and they say the Imam was Yazid. So whatever you bring forward, all of a sudden there's a justification, there's a way around it, there's a way that they can turn the tables, justify. But there's one aspect of light that you can never remove. And that's Fatima Zahra. Why? Because when we look at Fatima and we see with all the traditions in every book that Fatima's anger is the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whomever angers Fatima angers me. Rasulullah says, whomever angers me angers Allah. Now, let's take that into perspective. They even tried to turn around that. They said, no, Fatima wasn't angered with the first two. She was angered with Ali. Well, hold on. If Ali is the soul of Rasulullah, how can she be angered with Rasulullah? This doesn't make sense. So the justification now, hold on, that the light of Fatima shines a light on the injustice. That this Fatima Zahra and her life shines that particular bright light on the oppression, on the khilafah, on the usurped right. It shines. I want you to imagine if Fatima Zahra didn't die, and that the 3 wars occurred, do you think people will have, a hesitation which side to take within that war, knowing where Fatima stood? Really think about this particular aspect. If Fatima was still alive, I want you just to imagine, knowing the personality of Fatima Zahra, one of the greatest lights that we have, that even now, I want you to imagine, in the loneliness of her grave, in the loneliness of the grave that we do not know where it is, in that darkness, there is more light that was shed upon the oppression and justice, and truth that should be revealed. When we say light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that she allows us to see the truth, allows us to see the justice, allows us to see where the oppression is, even in her death. Imagine a grave that there's only maybe one visitor that visits it. But she says, no problem. I prefer to be lonely. But that sends a message to everyone that ask why I am lonely. Ask why I don't have a grave that people can visit. I need you to ask why I chose to be buried in such a manner. Know very well that I was angered. Why was I angered? Whom was I angered? And what was I angered for? Because they always try to paint the picture, Fatima spoke. Look at the injustice. They say that the khutbah of Fatima, and sometimes even we fall into the trap. They say the khutbah of Fatima, they call it al-khutbah al-fadakiyya. Trying to showcase to people that the reason Fatima spoke out against the Khalifa of the time was what? Was because of a land of Fadak. The lady that gave her wedding dress on her wedding night goes and speaks in the Masjid of Rasulullah for a piece of land. So they called it al-khutbah al-fadakiyya. There's a few lines about Fadak, about that particular speech. That khutbah al-Fatimiyya spoke about everything, and especially the injustice of how they took away the khilaf of Amir al-Mu'minin. We fall into traps. Imagine, for example, when we look at the Hajj of Rasulullah, what do they call the Hajj? Hajj al-Wida'. Why? What does it mean, Hajj al-Wida'? The last Hajj. Why is it the last Hajj? No, Rasulullah went to one Hajj. Why the last Hajj? Why? Because they want to remove the people from understanding that the only Hajj he went on, to complete the religion, he raised the hand of Amir al-Mu'minin. They tie an elephant to the door of where the serpent entered Kufa for the miracle of Amir al-Mu'minin. You go to Masjid al-Kufa, Bab al-Thu'ban is named Bab al-Thu'ban because the serpent entered, and that was noted as a merit for Amir al-Mu'minin when he spoke to that serpent. With the Khalifas of the time, they said, we can't handle that. Let's tie an elephant to the door. So where'd you come from? The door of the elephant. That elephant, died or whatever happened to it. Because why? The merits need to stand. Sometimes even we fall into a trap of saying, Imam al-Hasan has a statement saying, La yawm kayawmuka ya Aba Abdullah. But then they say the Abbas Khalifas were the ones, they say, historically, that they try to, dilute the vision by saying every day is Ashura, every land. We understand the statement, but there may be something that makes us think, let's dilute this, something of that importance. So where should we stand? Khutbah al-Fadakiyya, Khutbah al-Fatimiyya. There's much to learn from that. But why is Fatima the greatest amongst those four? Question. Very delicate point, and the one that we're going to end with tonight. But before we end in this note, I want to ask everyone a question that we'll return to at the conclusion of this statement. And that's the question. If Imam al-Mahdi was to return, if Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman was to return, and you are given one question to ask, what would that question be? One question. What would that question be? Think, we'll return to it. The four greatest women of all time. There's a particular verse within the Holy Quran. And that verse in Surah Al-Furqan, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa ibad ar-Rahman alladhina yamshuna ala al-ardi hawnan, wa idha khatabahum al-jahilun, qalu salama. And the servants of the Most Merciful are those who walk upon the earth easily, and when the ignorant addresses them, they say words of peace. On the first level, people come forward unanimously and say that this refers to the people that are, zahideen, people that are very easygoing, people that are very humble, subservient. They don't let others harm them in any manner. The words, their attacks, physically, verbally, they live in a life where everything's easy for them. Goes to the tradition, says, no. This refers to the Imams, but how? This is the question. They translate hawnan in an essence of they are careful where they tread, lest they give an opportunity for those that want to kill them to have a grasp on them. Know this very carefully, because it's part and parcel of what we're going to discuss. That they tread carefully not to give the oppressors an opportunity to have an upper hand on them. They say there are many reasons why these women are the greatest of all time. They say amongst these reasons is the fact that the Imams of their time, or the Prophets of their time, they had a helping hand in the protection of the Imams in the time where the oppressors had close to an upper hand on them. What do I mean? When we look at, for example, the story of Musa, one of the greatest ladies is Asiya. Musa, they were killing children everywhere. In the stomachs of their mothers, they were piecing them. All of a sudden, a cradle comes, picked up by Asiya. Fir'aun, what does he say? He says, it's a boy, kill him. Who protected that boy? Asiya. When you look at the life, how she protected him in every stage of his life. Maryam, example. She protected two prophets, by the way. Zakaria on one hand, when Zakaria builds her a mihrab for her to worship, she was at the forefront and he was performing his duties behind closed doors, revealing the messages behind closed doors. And likewise, she was instilled to protect, to leave, protect Isa and return with him, protecting him. Even though people were calling her names, attributing things to her. But protection. Maryam, Khadija, what do we know? Had it not been the sword of Ali and the wealth of Khadija, Islam would not be where it is today. And this is the delicate point I need you to pay attention to, because we're going to end on this note. The delicate point is Amir al-Mu'mineen is an imam for a husband. When people come to attack your imam, you have an opportunity for you to protect your imam. When men come towards you trying to attack you, you're the imam. You say, you know what? They've come to attack men. They won't attack a woman. And that's one of the reasons why Fatima went to the door and not Ali. They've come to attack Ali. They wouldn't attack a woman. Fatima comes towards the door in protection of Ali. That's why what happens when Fatima goes to the door? What was the call? They didn't say, Ali is in the house. What did they say? Fil bayti Fatima. Saying what? That, there's a woman in the house. Fatima Zahra is in the house. What was the reply? What in? So what? Fatima is saying, every opportunity that I have to protect my imam, I'm going to take it, even if it means sacrificing myself. That's why when you go hand in hand, when Fatima leaves, when they take Amir al-Mu'mineen, even when she was in pain, what did she say to Salman? Salman, they burnt my door. Silent. Broke my rib. Silent. Took my right. Silent. Killed my infant. Silent. When did she speak out? For my imam, O Salman. One angle that we can see the light of Fatima is the protection and the sacrifice for her imam, not for her husband. The great ladies do this. That's why we look at Zainab's story. Imam, did she protect him or not? When they tried to strike Sajjad, she says, kill me first. Again, protected the imam, just like her mother before her. So when we have the question saying, what would we ask the imam when he returns? Because many of us can think to ourselves, we want to be alongside him, something that's achievable. We want to be, for example, in Jannah, something that we can work towards. Anything that we may have, most of which is attainable. It's in our hands. We have dua. We have our actions. There may be one thing that we'll never have access to, and that's knowing where the grave of Fatima Zahra is. Something to look into, something to really ponder over. In an ending note, we need to understand that Fatima Zahra, being the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sheds and unveils, let's say, the oppression within history as well as the truth, by her grave not being known to us and the stances that she took. And inshallah, we can utilize that knowledge that we have from Fatima Zahra, the greatest lady ever in this world and the hereafter. And we want to seek to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an ending note that He allows us to learn more of the life of Fatima, and of utmost importance at a higher level that we apply that which we learn from Fatima Zahra within our life. The Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha, but before it, 3 of your loudest salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.